What's up, everybody? This is Jose from Southern Life. Welcome to Bradenton Beach, Florida. Behind me is the biggest land grab in the state of Florida right now. So this is Pines Trailer Park in Bradenton Beach, Florida. So right after the hurricane came in here, immediately the city came through and tried to have everything condemned. Of course, it wasn't really the city that was trying to have it condemned. The city was just the tool being used. You can see that these mobile homes are already rebuilt like normal. You figure if you're in the back, this car's gonna run me over and get out of the way. Wow, look at that. We've already had 2 times that we've tried to film in this trailer park. We've received threats, and on top of that, we've also tried to have people hit us with cars. So this is a story that somebody doesn't want put out. So right after the hurricane came through here, the city tried to have the entire park condemned, which is strange because each individual mobile home would have a different condition, but the intention was clear. What gives this place its character and beauty is that there are still small cottages and homes here. Many of the people who love Anna Maria Island love its small town charm, character, the fact that it's kind of a small place. I literally have to be careful recording today's video because I have had cars try to run me over on previous visits. So the first phase of this attempted land grab was by trying to condemn these trailers, but me went on social media and I shared a state statute any mobile home built before the building code 1968 cannot be condemned because it is not part of the state's building codes. And many of the mobile homes inside of this park here were actually built before the building code. Since these mobile homes have been here since before the building code, the state cannot condemn these properties. However, despite the fact there's a state statute that clearly states that any mobile home built before the building code is exempt from having to comply with any type of regulation, they still came in here and try to have these mobile homes condemned. So there's 2 streets that split this mobile home park. 2 of them are private and 2 of them are public. Sometimes, even though they're public and they belong to the county, people will put up signs saying that it's private, even it's not. So I actually went on the property appraiser to make sure we didn't have any misunderstandings before I came over here. Now, I've already talked to residents that live here and they told me that I can go in here and do whatever I want, but I'm going to stay on the perimeter for now. So I go on social media and I shared on all of Facebook groups a state statute from way back in the day that states that any mobile home that is before the building code cannot be forced to comply to the building code. After I shared that, they were not able to condemn the mobile homes initially, which was their original intention. However, because I did that, I made a few enemies in this area because the first phase of their land grab would have been to condemn the mobile homes. However, because I shared that state statute with people here and they used that state statute, they were not able to condemn this mobile home park the way they wanted to. So I received a couple of threats. I've had people following me, and both times I've tried recording in this park in the past, I've had people try to run me over with their vehicles, which is why today, when we're here, we're going to be really careful today. Make sure that nobody tries to hit us with cars, because when we've come in here to do these videos, we've had people follow us and had people try to run us over with cars. So we've had threats for making these stories. We've had threats for putting out the information that prevented these mobile home parks from being condemned. So trying to have this place condemned, that was the first aspect of the land grab, and it failed. So the city then, now keep in mind, there's a development plan for this area. They have an intention, they know what they want to do. They're trying to do a land grab. And it isn't the only land grab of this nature happening in the state of Florida. There's another land grab in Sweetwater, Florida, and the difference is that on that land grab, they're going about it a little bit differently. In that land grab, they're paying people $14,000 for their properties. However, in 2023, they bought this property for a total of $16 million. Now, by state law, they have to offer the residents a buyout option. So they buy this place for $16 million. What do you guys think the buyout option is? 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million? They want $75 million. They want 4 to 5 times what they paid for it just a year ago. So let's understand the difference. In Miami, they're offering people the option of being paid for their properties $14,000. Here, it's the people who have to buy out the property. So in the case of Miami, where the developer, intended developer, is the one who has to do the buyout, they're only giving people $14,000, which is less than a quarter what those mobile homes are worth. But let's show you guys how corrupt these developers are in the state of Florida. Here, it's the opposite scenario. Here, it's the people who have to buy out their property. So in Miami, where the developer's paying, they're only paying less than a quarter of what the properties are worth. The developers are offering the people to pay 4 times what the properties are actually worth. So you can start to understand how corrupt these officials are and developers that are doing these land grabs. When it's the people, the residents, who have to get paid, they want to pay less than a quarter of the price. But vice versa, when the developer is required to offer a buyout to the residents, then it's more than 4 times the property's value. And that is how corruption in Florida is stealing people's properties. When the developers are the ones who have to buy people out, they pay less than a quarter. But when the people have to buy their homes from the developers, then the developer asks more than 4 times what they paid for it just a year ago. Now, there are individual properties like this one right here that are condemned. This one right here was one of the properties that was condemned, that needs to be condemned because of its condition. But it isn't every single mobile home in this area. This particular mobile home was condemned because obviously the destruction is visible. Now, to prove their point, they left these mobile homes that are going to be condemned. They haven't cleaned up anything. They've left them just the way they are because they're trying to make this mobile home park look like it's completely destroyed, like it's completely annihilated, and they have to come in here. So this is what they want to do in most of Florida. They want to make these giant, high-rise, expensive properties, but in order to be able to do that, to accommodate the ultra-wealthy, they have to first get rid of the middle class that was here before them. Now, these mobile homes here have been in the state of Florida for decades, way before the building code even existed in Florida. So in order to build stuff like this that's newer, they first have to get rid of the people that were here before them. Now, if they went about it in a legal way, it wouldn't be a problem. The issue is that these developers are practically stealing the land from underneath people's homes. These people have worked their entire lives to buy a little slice of Florida so they can retire on a beach town, and now these developers are literally, stealing their homes from them. And like I said, in the case of Sweetwater, Florida, where the developer's the one who has to do the buyout, they pay people less than a quarter what they're worth. But on the flip side, when it's the people who have to pay, they want 4 times what it's worth. So this is called corruption. And why are they able to do this? So there's a few differences with the buyouts. Now, with the buyouts, here it's the homeowners who have to offer the buyout, and in Miami it's the developer. So the buyout situation is different, but the land grab is the same. But there's also one particular thing in common, is the fact that this mobile home park also is in a small city. Now, if this mobile home park, and this is for the people here on Bradenton Beach, if this was part of Bradenton city limits, these corrupt officials wouldn't be able to do this land grab. In the case of Miami, if instead of being in Sweetwater, they were within Miami city limits, they couldn't do the land grab. It's just like the land grab in Miami. You can see the original structures being overshadowed, by the development. Sweetwater, Florida is a small suburb on the outskirts of Miami. A small suburb that can easily be corrupted by developers. Bradenton Beach is a small entity. Now, a while back they were talking about creating Bradenton Beach, Anna Maria Island, Holmes Beach, all these small little cities. They wanted to just disintegrate all these small cities and incorporate it into Bradenton city limits. Now, if this was within Bradenton city limits, these builders, don't get me wrong, Bradenton city, they're corrupted as well, but not to the same degree as these people here. So one vital thing that Sweetwater, Florida has in common with Bradenton Beach is that they are both very small cities. Most of these land grabs in Florida are happening in places like Sweetwater or Bradenton Beach, very small demographical areas that are incorporated. That is because if this was part of Miami or Bradenton, they couldn't do these land grabs because there's too many people involved and it's impossible to corrupt that many people. But in a place like Bradenton Beach, a small police force, a small little place like this, the developers only have to corrupt a few people in order to have their bid done. Imagine what type of luck these people are going to have trying to sell their homes when there's currently a land grab going on. So that is why places like Bradenton Beach, Sweetwater, Florida have been the most susceptible to land grabs. There are so many things in common with the land grab going on here with the land grab in Sweetwater, Florida. I mean, for one, look in the background. You can clearly see the looming threat that this mobile home park has in the background. So if you are moving to the state of Florida, the smaller the entity of a city is, the easier it is for developers to corrupt it. There isn't a chance in the world that this land grab could happen if this was within the city limits of Miami or Sarasota. So if you're moving to the state of Florida, in the future, you're gonna have to be very careful not to end up in a small city that is fast growing. Now, these small entities like Bradenton Beach and Sweetwater may have great safety analytics, they may have great real estate appreciation, they may be growing places, but these are places where if local officials become corrupted, the developers can do whatever they want. So why couldn't these mobile homes literally be condemned? Well, as you can see, this one here actually has an actual license plate from the Department of Transportation. Now, when the city tried to come in here and condemn these places, they were actually acting outside of their jurisdiction because mobile homes are actually under the Department of Transportation. So a local government doesn't have the jurisdiction to condemn a mobile home. And there's a state statute in Florida that specifically mentions that mobile homes are not able to be condemned because they don't belong to these entities. A mobile home is a trailer. In fact, the only person who has any jurisdiction over these mobile homes is the Department of Transportation. That is why it has a license plate. Now, most people here in Bradenton Beach didn't know that. Their lawyers didn't know that. But I lived in Naples, Florida, where we had a similar circumstance happen to me, and they wanted to condemn my mobile home, and they weren't able to condemn it because of that state statute. The problem is that Naples, Florida, Corlier County, unincorporated Corlier, is a very large place. There's many players involved. But in a place like Bradenton Beach that has been corrupted by these officials, it's very difficult for actual justice to take place. Even though the state statute may say a certain thing, if you're only dealing with 5 people at the office and all of them are corrupted and working for the same team, it doesn't matter what the law says. They're going to do whatever they want. So despite that, their efforts to condemn this entire mobile home park, you can see there are people residing here and they were not able to condemn it despite their intentions. So what happens after they were not able to condemn the mobile home park? Well, then they said that the real reason that they wanted to buy this place is because the city, listen to this, the city was going to build a park here. Now, that isn't far stretched, and I'll tell you why. Because in Bonita Springs, Florida, the city did tear down mobile home parks and turn them into parks. But that wasn't what was going to happen here. That wasn't the way they presented it initially. That was, once everybody started to report on this story and tell everybody what was going on in this mobile home park, that they later changed their story and said, well, it's not for developers. The city was going to buy it to make a park. Well, if that was the case, then why didn't they say it from the beginning? Their intention was never to buy out this park to turn it into a city park. If it was their intention, then they would have from the beginning presented it that way. So why didn't they present it that way from the beginning? Very simple, because it wasn't their intention. That was just the way they tried to cover up for the fact, the clear fact, that these developers had corrupted all the public officials in order to entice them to condemn all the mobile home park, when really it was only a few particular properties that needed to be condemned. It was clearly that the local officials were corrupt and they were working for the developers. They had been corrupted and they were working to have the entire park prematurely condemning this whole entire park. So let's not forget the intention. From the beginning, as soon as the hurricane hit, they came in here and they said that this park was uninhabitable, that humans could never live here again, and that this whole thing had to be knocked down. Well, today there's a lot of people living here, so obviously that didn't work out. So in order to cover the trail of what their real intentions and motives were, they changed the narrative, saying that, well, their real intentions isn't to sell it to a developer, it was to turn it into a city park. But on the flip side, this person paid about $16 million for this property, and now they're asking $75 million buyout from the residents, clearly 4 times more than what they paid for it just a year ago. So clearly an injustice. Clearly what they're offering isn't even the market value, but it is, despite not being market value. It's the way the law is written. The law says they have to offer a buyout, so they offer a buyout that is 4 times what it's actually worth, what they actually paid for it. So in what world? And if it appreciated 5%, 10%, that would be reasonable. But last time I checked, no property has appreciated more than 4 times its value in the last year anywhere in the world. So what makes this land so coveted and desirous to these developers? Well, unfortunately for the elderly people who worked their entire lives to buy these mobile homes to have a slice of Florida, but unfortunately developers want to get their hands on these people's properties, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as they do it ethically. The problem is that they're not going about it ethically. They're actually doing some of the most disgusting practices that I have ever seen anywhere, and they were successful in Sweetwater, Florida. Chances are they're going to be successful in stealing these people's homes here as well. So just to give you guys an idea of how desirable this area is in general, just in order to park my vehicle for 1 hour, I had to pay $15 today. Literally, standing in the front of this mobile home park, you can see the Gulf of Mexico. 2 or 3 blocks away is the beautiful Gulf of Mexico. The developer paid $16 million for this little area right here. If these 3 acres were in Naples, Florida, directly on the water, you might be able to get $40 or $50 million. So the price that they are asking is absurdly ridiculous. In fact, it's more than 4 times what they paid for it. So imagine this. You live in this mobile home park right here, right? You live in this mobile home park, and this is the backwater, right? You have this beautiful view. In fact, right there, you can actually see downtown Sarasota in the distance. Way down there, that is downtown Sarasota. You have a clear view straight to downtown Sarasota. Today, the temperature here is in the upper 70s. Most of the country right now is in the snow. Now, regarding that $75 million price tag, if this was Naples, Florida, where the water temperatures are considerably warmer, see, it's a beautiful day to be on the beach, but you're not going to go into the Gulf of Mexico today. It's too cold, right? It's too cold to go in the Gulf of Mexico right now. But if you're a little bit further south in Naples, Florida, you might actually be able to go for a swim today because the water temperatures are warmer. So in Naples, Florida, okay, 100 miles south of here in Naples, Florida, with more warm weather, with higher Gulf temperatures, you can grow better tropical vegetation. In Naples, Florida, if it was directly on the sand of the Gulf of Mexico, this land could be worth $75 million there, but it certainly isn't worth it here in Bradenton, Florida, where you have a homeless apocalypse zombie land 3 miles away. So yes, this is valuable real estate. I mean, they paid $16 million for it, but they're demanding that the residents cough up $75 million for less than 3 acres? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's actually, but this is just another land grab in the state of Florida. In Miami and Bradenton, all over the state of Florida, you're seeing these land grabs where the ultra rich practically are stealing the homes from underneath the working class people who work so hard to obtain what they have. These are people who are elderly. They work their entire lives to buy these mobile homes here, and now that is being taken away from them, and what's being asked is completely unreasonable. But that's just the reality of Florida, where developers continue land grabs. So unfortunately, this is the reality of Florida, and this isn't just happening in one or two places. This is the new trend in Florida. Corrupt officials literally taking away people's homes from underneath them. And it isn't just in one place, it's happening throughout the entire state. It's happening to these people here in Bradenton Beach. It's happening to 900 families in Sweetwater, Florida, right outside of Miami. And the people here are really afraid. Like, I have people off camera who talk to me, but the residents here, they're really afraid to get out and talk about this problem. People are practically afraid because they're under threat. And like I said, I've had people threaten me just for making a few videos out here. We've been threatened a few times. We've had cars try to run us over while making videos here. So clearly somebody with a lot of money and power feels like they have the ability to scare these people. And very few people have actually come out and been outspoken about this situation simply out of fear. It's the case with many circumstances. When somebody's being deprived of their property and they're under threat, people are afraid to speak out. And many times in places like this, people have been really scared to speak out. They've been really afraid to voice their voices and concerns about what's happening, because they feel that if they do voice their concerns, or if they talk about what's going on, that they could end up having their properties, they could be damaged, they could be threatened. People are literally afraid of simply, well, voicing their fear. Imagine you're in a situation where somebody is literally stealing your property from you, and you're so afraid to speak out. You know, and that's what's crazy about what's happening here, is that the residents are scared. The residents here are really scared to speak out. They're not even able to talk about what they're going through, what they're feeling, what their plans are. They're just afraid to speak out. And well, I guess the most common denominator between these mobile home parks and places where these land grabs are happening is that they are in small municipalities that are incorporated. So if you're moving to the state of Florida, you need to think very carefully about exactly where you buy your property, because it has become far too common for these small municipalities like Sweetwater, Florida, like Bradenton Beach, Florida, or any small geographical area to be able to get corrupted by officials who are willing to basically work with developers to even steal your land. And they're not afraid of the repercussions. They're not afraid. They're getting millions of dollars in kickbacks. Who knows how much these people are getting in kickbacks? So what the crap do they care about their public image being scarred by what they do? They don't care. They're being corrupted. And many times the people who take the brunt of the public's anger aren't even the people who are actually behind these moves. Keep in mind that it's building departments, it's people in the permitting and building departments. Those are the people who are really behind many of these scandals, taking the kickbacks. And those people are rarely ever questioned about the things that happen. In other words, the public takes on an enemy who isn't even the right one. And well, that just distracts people from the real culprit behind these situations. So when we say there's corruption here in Manatee County, you have a commissioner who was arrested for a DUI. That's on YouTube. You can look it up. It's one of the commissioners here. He was seen doing a DUI. He's a commissioner. Imagine somebody who gets arrested for doing a DUI, putting people's lives in danger, driving recklessly through the community, and then they're able to go and still keep their job as a city commissioner. Hop on to the next one. The other one was arrested and was on video for stealing somebody's plotted plants from their garden. Now that individual is also a commissioner. So here in Manatee County, you have two commissioners who have been arrested, and you can actually look up their videos and stories. You can literally go on the internet and find their arrest stories and videos of them getting arrested. In this county, you have two sitting commissioners who have been arrested. You can see the video of them getting arrested for a DUI. The other one got arrested for stealing somebody's potted plants out of their garden. So when you have sitting officials that are complete criminals and they're still able to hold on to their seat, that should just give you an idea how messed up things are in Manatee County. So Manatee County itself is infected, if not infested, I don't know which word is better for this county, with corrupt officials. But then you get into a small incorporated city where they're absolutely corrupted. And this is why people are literally able to steal properties. There's a mobile home park right there. Just in front of the mobile home park is yet another scandal with the local government here. Now, they pulled a permit for this tiki bar right here, but they actually built the tiki bar about 2 times bigger than what it was supposed to be. So now they're probably going to have to make them tear down the tiki bar because it's bigger than what the permit suggested. Now, I did some research on this property parcel, and this tiki bar is on this parking lot. So this whole parking lot is one single parcel. So it really wouldn't be hard for them to make a variance to the permit and allow for the larger tiki hut. So the people here on the island are really happy that this tiki bar is going up. They're excited. The people here love it. They're excited about it. They're happy and they're super excited about this tiki bar right here. It's beautiful. The people love it. They're excited for it to open. It turns out that the dimensions of this tiki bar do not conform to the building permit. So now the city is probably going to have them demolish this beautiful tiki hut that the people here love, even though there isn't a setback encroachment or nothing like that. It just isn't the right dimensions. Technically, they could qualify for a variance, and that would be the end of the situation. But of course, if it's larger than, I think it's 720 square feet, and that's attached to this building right here that's being worked on. If it's more than 720 square feet, then it is no longer an attachment to a property. It becomes its own structure, and it requires a completely different permit process. So they may have been trying to cheat the system, in which case you can't cheat the system. But it's interesting how, you know, when it comes to a structure like this, something that the community wants and they love, how they'll crack down on them. But when developers are stealing all this land, they don't have any problem with that. And that's what's interesting about these little areas, you know. So when it comes to something like this that the community is happy about, now again, I don't know what the motives and intentions are of the people here, because like I said, if it's more than 720 square feet, it's a whole different type of permit. You know, they crack down real hard on stuff like this that makes the community happy, but then when a developer wants to come in here and steal people's houses, they're complicit. So you have a place that's beautiful, some of the most beautiful beaches in Florida, charming neighborhoods. It's just gorgeous out here, but the level of corruption in these places is just unbelievable. I've had people email me information. I've had people message me, email me, and talk to me off camera. But in general, as a general rule, see they're waving. As a general rule, they're not talking on camera. They're really afraid. And I've had everybody that I've talked to has told me, Jose, I'm going to give you this information, or I'm going to give you this inside scoop, but please. But then they tell me, please, Jose, do not reveal my identity. I'm afraid. So let's be clear. When it comes to this mobile home park, the residents are afraid of retaliation. We're talking millions of dollars. The people here are afraid of retaliation by developers. And even myself covering a story have had threats that have been very elaborate and detailed, as well as when we've come here in the past, we've had people even try to run us over with vehicles more than once. So the people here are afraid. Let's be clear about that. Just imagine the notion that you move to Florida, you buy your dream home, a developer wants to buy, and then you're so afraid of these people that you're not even able to talk about what happened to you. And many times, like when I lived in Alabama, you guys remember when I lived in Alabama and I was going through what I was going through with something somewhat of the same nature. When you're being victimized and somebody's taking you out of your home, most people are under threat and they're too afraid to talk. So what I went through, my experience personally in my lifetime, is very similar to these people's. So I do have a lot of people, several people that live in this park. They've reached out to me with emails and information, but they're very afraid to be on camera because of the fear of retaliation. That is how serious this situation is. And typically, whenever you're hurting somebody and taking their home from them, most of the time they're going to be under threat of violence either way. All right, everybody. So this is what's happening in the state of Florida with the land grabs. Let's get out of here before they tow my vehicle away. Am I forgetting something on today's video? I am. Remember that everything that I've said on today's video is my personal opinion. Personal opinion disclaimer. Remember, we live in a country where the truth comes with a personal disclaimer, and the lies, well, read the small print.